We'll let anyone who is joining kind of flow their way in. I'm going to get my screen sharing. Looks like it's already sharing. Welcome to our webinar. This is going to be AI-powered productivity, beginner's guide to Atlassian Intelligence. So if you are here to learn some of the basics and some introduction to Atlassian Intelligence and to how to utilize Atlassian Intelligence in your cloud instance. So we're going to be kind of introducing Atlassian Intelligence as a product, but also showing some examples of how you could utilize it in your instance, in your workflows. You'll notice that the images here have two people, and there's just one here today. Sam is not going to be able to make it today, but I'm going to be kind of covering his section as well. My name is Joshua Dimitri. I'm a principal solutions architect at Valiantys. I spend my time basically talking with customers and solutioning around their cloud environments, and especially looking at ways that we can integrate things like AI and the AI tools in Atlassian Cloud, along with software development and tools consulting and kind of all the different parts of the Atlassian ecosystem and bring those together into solutions that we can provide our customers. So let's go ahead and just kind of jump right in. I want to give a little bit of an introduction about Valiantys. I won't spend too long on this, but we are a global partner of Atlassian. So we've got a lot of time spent working directly with Atlassian, both from just like the tools side of things, so configuring and building platforms around Atlassian Cloud, but also even spanning to full stack development. So when we talk about building custom solutions and plugins and kind of like helping our customers customize their environments to that next level, we've also got tooling and staff to do that as well. A couple of our things that you can look at as services that we provide, things like consulting, like I was mentioning there, along with licensing as well, but also our integration and development being kind of the side of the house that I originally came from, which is our software development, where we can kind of build custom implementations of cloud tooling and products that tie into Atlassian Cloud, managed services, and then training, including the webinar that you're attending right now. So training being a major area of how we interact with our customers and with the environment, ecosystem, and community. All right, so our agenda really just looks pretty simple. It's going to be what is Atlassian Intelligence, some information on pricing, and then some demos. We're going to be looking at also some security information as well, kind of how does Atlassian Intelligence handle that? Just really walking through some basic examples of how do we utilize Atlassian Intelligence and what do the tools look like, where to access them, how to turn them on in the environment, that type of thing for today. We'll show some of the current features and things that are coming soon as well, and then jumping a little bit into how Atlassian Intelligence ties into custom solutioning and really just more how does Atlassian Intelligence help our cloud environments tie into the rest of the organizations. When we look at not just the Atlassian tooling, but how do we create a process and a platform where that tooling can tie into and connect to the rest of the environments that we have and other tools that might exist in our organizations. We will have some Q&A time if we do have questions. There should be a Q&A button if you want to submit questions there, or you can send them in the chat, whatever mechanism you've got there to send questions. Feel free to ask them and I will answer them at the end. I'm going to start by just talking about what Atlassian Intelligence is and kind of how it works. So at its core, Atlassian Intelligence is just the AI tool from Atlassian, right? We know that AI tooling and kind of having some sort of AI tool is just a part of the modern world. Every modern tool, every modern platform is going to have a tool like, kind of an AI chatbot or AI search or whatever it might look like. Atlassian Intelligence being Atlassian's version of one of those tools. The way that it works is basically it's going to be combining a kind of slew of different things. We've got open source models, we've got open AI models, and we've got the what we call the teamwork graph, which is Atlassian's way of understanding all the connections between the different parts of the environment in our Atlassian cloud systems. So if we have, like Confluence and Jira, and we also have things like Compass, and we have analytics and kind of other parts of the platform, the teamwork graph is kind of the way that the data is connected under the hood. And the AI tooling is going to basically sit on top of that in order to get full context and knowledge about all the connections that we have to all the different parts of the data in our environment. So being able to reference Jira and Confluence in the same query and kind of ask questions that way is going to be an important piece of that. So Atlassian Intelligence is just the AI tool that provides us the ability to utilize generative AI basically in line and in context of whatever we're doing in Atlassian Cloud products. All right, so going to data security a little bit, I just want to talk through some of the details here. Essentially, from like the basic standpoint, this is an opt-in only feature. So if you want to use Atlassian Intelligence, you have to manually turn it on. That is because the landscape of AI is kind of still evolving and changing. So we know that some organizations are not going to want to have AI on right away. They're going to have to do some evaluations on it. Maybe they just aren't ready to adopt it yet from an organizational level. So it's an opt-in service. It also doesn't store any of the inputs or outputs, like long-lived storage of those terms. And what I mean by that, like the input that I'm talking about here, is the information that you send to, let's say, like an OpenAI large language model. So the way that Atlassian Intelligence behind the scenes is working is that Atlassian and OpenAI kind of have a contract with each other and a deal that they've brokered where they're going to send a prompt or some sort of information to OpenAI, and then OpenAI's models will process that and return it back. Because OpenAI really just right now does have the highest quality responses and kind of the best tooling around AI large language models. So we utilize that to get really good answers. But the way that Atlassian handles that internally is by basically creating a system where the information being sent to OpenAI is isolated as a single prompt every time, and that prompt is not being stored. None of that data can be used to train other people's models or other people's data. It's all kept isolated, and you don't have to broker your own deal with OpenAI to make that happen. Atlassian has already done that, and it's already handled in a way that none of that data is actually being stored by OpenAI to like train anything else. It's also going to be respecting permissions and data residency. So all the things that we come to expect from Atlassian tooling, from permissions and data residency, kind of user-based access roles, those things are also going to be respected automatically by Atlassian Intelligence. So that's a big benefit of using it over, kind of building your own option or using other options that are out there. It's directly tied into these platforms where you're doing your work, tracking it in Jira and your knowledge bases in Confluence. You already have user-based access roles set up, and it's going to automatically be respecting those. Now, there are going to be some features that we'll see in the future that coming from Atlassian, where there's going to be some differences in how we can choose to utilize AI tooling. So especially for larger organizations, as we talk about wanting to remove the connection point to OpenAI, for example, or scenarios where we have high security applications and we need to remove any sort of external system we want to stay within the Atlassian walls. Atlassian is working on the possibility of having the choice to say I want to only use Atlassian models directly or Atlassian's usage of open source models. So no more OpenAI models basically, and say, hey, I just want to use everything that's inside the Atlassian walls and doesn't leave that ecosystem, and basically be able to choose between using that for the higher level of security and isolation versus using OpenAI for potentially still very secure communication, but potentially better answers because of the fact that it just has a little bit more information to be trained on. So keep an eye out for those features if that's something that you're kind of concerned about or looking at to see in the future. It is also SOC 2 and ISO 27001 compliant. It's not currently HIPAA compliant, but they are working on that, and so we should hopefully see that come in the future. And it's just not currently implemented right now. And that's kind of the current landscape of data security for Atlassian Intelligence. They are really working and have done a lot of work already to get all of their AI tooling to basically just follow the same security standards and the same compliance standards that the rest of the Atlassian Cloud Platform follows. Now, in terms of pricing, there kind of is an ever-evolving landscape around pricing for Atlassian AI products because this is just true about the entire industry around AI. So as of today and historically, it's basically been just included as part of a premium or enterprise license. So if you wanted to have it, you would basically need one of those licenses and it would just be included as part of that and you could utilize it. Basically, they had some tooling as well, and it's still there to basically if a single user is abusing it and using way too much bandwidth for like a single user, it can throttle certain users and kind of manage the load that way. But you would just have, it included in those tiers. We are seeing, especially as things like Rovo come out, and we'll talk a little bit about Rovo kind of later on today, but as we're seeing new features come out and new ways of pricing, we're basically seeing all the AI features from Atlassian filter down into every version of their cloud products. So it's not necessarily just for premium and enterprise anymore. And we're seeing basically just getting access to those tools with a consumption-based pricing model. And so we're going to be seeing more information about that in the future. But this is kind of the way that it's historically worked, and as of today, may still work in your environments. So reach out to us if you have any questions about that. We can help you navigate the kind of landscape of where pricing and package options are looking like for AI services with Atlassian. All right, so what I really want to do now is just do some walkthrough of the features. So just going through kind of some demos, showing you how we can interact with things. We're going to, these are going to be pretty simple use cases, but show some pointed examples of where you might be able to utilize Atlassian Intelligence to kind of get some more insights or help you write some content and use that actually in your environment. So I'm going to start by just jumping into Jira. I've got this board for an AI marketing content. So let's say I want to be managing content for AI marketing. You kind of mocking out this is a board that I'm following and wanting to add content to or update content in. And I want to see how AI is going to help me utilize this board in a more efficient way, or kind of allow me to get some more insights on the data that I'm looking at. So I open up this AMC4 work item here. You'll notice that I've basically just got a ticket already generated. It's already created. I've got some information in it. The description, it has a description, but maybe it's not as descriptive as I would like. I want to just add some more content here. So if I actually go in here, there are a couple of ways to access Atlassian Intelligence, but there's actually a lot of ways to access it throughout the entire platform. But in a text field of any kind, if I hit this slash, I'll actually get the Atlassian Intelligence option showing up here, and that'll be one way to access it. The other way I could do that is this button right here. So this little logo that you're seeing here, this is basically where Atlassian Intelligence is going to be. So if you look around and see this logo showing up anywhere in your environment, once you've turned it on, that's where it's going to be showing up. So one thing I didn't mention, and I'll come back to this example here in a second, is how to actually turn it on. So how do I get to the point where I see this button? How do I get there and actually utilize Atlassian Intelligence? Well, you can get there through your kind of user settings. So if I go into user management, you'll have a section in here where you can enable it for different products. So if I go into settings and AI enable apps, you'll notice I've got basically a list of all the apps that are available and whether or not they have been enabled for Atlassian Intelligence. So both Confluence and Jira are enabled. If I had other apps available, I could enable those as well. So you can go per app and enable it or disable it per app for Atlassian Intelligence. Now, once I've done that, if I go back into this AMC4 content, let's say I want to add just a little bit more to what this description is saying, and I want to go ahead and use AI to do that. So I can go into this prompt engine that I've got here. So this is now Atlassian Intelligence showing up, and I want to use it to, let's say, add some ideas for how to approach leveraging social media for a marketing campaign. If I can spell that correctly. And if I go ahead and search now, or basically hit enter, it's going to take that prompt and use Atlassian Intelligence to generate some content based off of that prompt. So it's going to give me some ideas of how to leverage social media for a marketing campaign. And I can choose to either discard that, I can refine it. So I can basically give it some further information about how I want to refine this answer, or I can just insert it, which is going to put it directly into my description here. Let's say I want to insert it and save. Now I've got that in my description, and I don't have to write anything manually. It's just showing up there, right? I probably would want to do some edits if this was in like a live environment, right? I want to use the AI tool to kind of help me get from nothing to having something there, and then edit from there, refine, use the AI tool to even refine it further, and then I can use that content to help give some more information on this description. Now, what if I want to go around this ticket as well, this work item, and maybe I want to go a little bit further down and look at the comments. Let's say I want to rephrase some content here because I'm looking at this and Sam's been commenting here, and there have been a lot of things that maybe show up as it's pretty aggressive potentially. But let's say I come in here and say, yeah, I am reading these. Just tell me what is wrong. Let's say I'd say that. Maybe it's not the most professional tone, and I really just want to respond, but this really isn't the most professional tone to use, right? So if I go ahead and edit what I can do from here is I can actually highlight content and hit that same button. And once I've highlighted this content, I can go in here and I can change the tone of it. So I can use AI to take writing that I've generated, maybe change it to more professional. And now it'll say, currently reviewing these materials, please inform me of any issues that need to be addressed. So maybe I want to replace it with that. And now I've replaced it with a much more professional sounding comment. So we can use this to basically, utilize AI for something that it's very good at, which is to take content that you've created and to refine it and check the tone of it and to understand, if you can improve it in a way that's going to come off better to the other person you're sending something to. So I've used it to do that now. Maybe I want to also go back and the structure of this isn't quite what I want. Maybe I want this to be like a numbered list instead. I can go through here and I can actually restructure this as well, where I use this button and say, uh, make this a numbered list, and we can kind of get a response there where it should take the same content and give me a numbered list instead. I can replace that, save. So now it's the same content, but I've restructured that content into a way that's going to be a little bit more relevant for what I'm looking to do. So it just gives me some ways to interact with this content that I couldn't otherwise do without the AI tooling. All right, so now let's say I'm maybe happy with this and I'm kind of good to go. Now I've shown you kind of some of the ways where I can just interact with Atlassian Intelligence on a work item in Jira. But what if I want to go even one step further and use it for maybe some administration tasks or some configuration tasks beyond just like interacting with the work item? What if I want to go into automations and I actually want to utilize Atlassian Intelligence to make the automation engine a much more approachable tool for somebody to utilize and kind of build tooling in, right? So if I go to project settings and go to automation, there's actually a button here now that says create with AI. And this create with AI button is going to allow me to create an automation rule with AI where basically I'm going to be able to give it a prompt. If I hit this button, I can just type in a prompt here. And based on this prompt, it's going to create a automation rule for me. So if you have not used automation rules in Jira or in Confluence, it's a very powerful tool. It's really a great way to create more dynamic workflows and kind of some more complex or more custom implementations of Atlassian cloud products. But if you've never used it before, there might be a little bit of a learning curve. It's not super hard to approach, but you might just want a good way to test some things out and try some things without needing to know all the ins and outs of Atlassian automations, right? So I can go in here and I can even give it a prompt that says something like when all subtasks are completed, add a comment to the parent letting the assignee know. So this is something that maybe I would do normally in an implementation where I want to leave a comment on a work item if all of the subtasks get completed, just so that we know, hey, all the subtasks are completed, this is done. You can, transition this item, or maybe it cues the next part of the process to happen. If I go ahead and hit enter here, it's going to basically preview this rule. So what it's going to do is show me what this would look like in the automation tooling. So this is where it's what it would look like if I created this tool from scratch without using AI. And it's actually done this pretty much exactly as I needed it to. Whenever a work item is transitioned to done, if it has a parent and all of the subtasks of that parent are done, then it's going to go into the parent and leave a comment saying that all subtasks are completed. Great job. I can go in here. Maybe if it wasn't correct, I could hit the try again button. It'll actually retry and make a different implementation of that automation if you want to try it again. But now I basically got my starting point for automation. Maybe it works all the way there actually. So AI may have gotten me from nothing built to having automation that's actually working and that I want to turn on and will actually be useful for me, right? Well, I want to show a bit of an example here as well that maybe goes a little bit more complex. So I'm going to give it more things to think about at once. So if I say when a work item of type marketing asset is created and social media is in the summary. All right, so giving it some conditions there. I want it to add the social media label and create a subtask under the same work item. So I'm giving it 2 tasks now to do. And I'm going to say with target influencers in the issue summary. Okay, so now I have basically given it a couple different conditions all at the same time and a couple different actions to complete at the same time. So basically just a little bit more complex, asking it to do something a little bit harder for it to implement potentially, and we'll see how far it gets me along that path when we go see this preview. So when the work item is created, if it is a marketing asset issue type, so that's correct there. Then if the summary contains social media, that's also correct there. Then edit the fields to add a social media label. That's correct there. And create a subtask. Now, the one thing it didn't do here is it did not put target influencers in the summary of the subtask. So it got me like 95% of the way there, right? So we can see some of the value here, right? It's not necessarily that it does everything for you. What it does is it gives you even more than a starting point. It gives you like most of the structure built, and you can get from zero to mostly there and just start doing some editing and fact checking basically on what it's generated. And very quickly now, I've gotten to a little bit more complex and pretty useful potentially automation rule built using AI and not having to kind of really understand all of the different pieces and components beforehand, right? I would go through here and I'd probably use this as an opportunity to learn, okay, how does the edit work item, action work? How does the structure look like? And I'd use this as an opportunity to understand what it did. But without having to do that beforehand, I was able to actually create this useful, tool, and I have an automation rule that I can utilize. So the AI tooling here is really about getting us from that starting point to having something that we can just edit and tweak to get to that final point that we're looking for. All right, so one more thing I want to show you in Jira before we jump over to Confluence is basically just issue search. So if I'm looking for work items or issues or kind of whatever name you're calling it at this point in time, if I go ahead and go into the search and just look for view all work items, what we'll notice here is that there's actually this AI button now on the search, where if I hit this AI button, I can go in here and kind of create a search for it. So if I basically just type in, written, normal, natural language, what I want for it to do for me and what I want for it to find, it'll be able to do that. And if I say, like search for all issues assigned to, let's say I want it to be assigned to Sam Ayers, so that's where most of these are assigned to. And that also have the word webinar in the summary. Let's see what it does there. So it will kind of take some time to build its query, and you'll notice that it did exactly that. It has created a query that is looking for the assignee to be Sam Ayers, and the summary is going to include webinar. I could go in here and kind of switch it to JQL and actually see exactly what the JQL for this looks like. So maybe it's something that was a harder thing to approach coming into administration, or you have people that are onboarding into your system that haven't done JQL before, and you want them to be able to still create some rich filters and searches and understand how to find things easily, right? So we can actually utilize AI in that case to create queries that ultimately end up in JQL, but start as just natural language and asking it. And maybe we want to use this to help with some of the more challenging things to manage in JQL. So things like dates are actually one of the more challenging things to handle in JQL sometimes, especially coming into it new, because it handles dates in kind of an odd way for a lot of people coming into it. So maybe I ask it something like, all issues assigned to Sam Ayers and word created last month. And there may or may not be any of them. We'll see what shows up here with last month, but there are actually not any new enough ones maybe, but these ones are in there. Okay, so there are some that are new enough. So we've got some tickets in here that were created, assigned to Sam in the last month. You'll notice that this is kind of almost like a pretty gnarly looking JQL query, right, for just created last month. But as you kind of look through here, you can start to learn how JQL handles these things as you use AI to create the queries for you. So basically make sure that understanding of JQL is no longer a barrier to creating rich searches of your work items or of anything in the environment, but it is also then a learning tool for understanding JQL and it helps you get further along in that process. So it's a great way to kind of utilize AI to both learn and to also get around anything that you may have not had as much exposure to yet. All right, so that about covers what I wanted to show in Jira. I'm going to jump over to Confluence and show you some of the equivalent tooling and some additional things that we have on the Confluence side of things. I have kind of the matching space for that AI marketing campaign type of project and space here. So if I go in here, what I want to show is if I just create a page, I actually use AI to generate quite a bit of content on these pages and kind of giving you a real starting point. So if I use that kind of slash notation to get into Atlassian Intelligence here and go ahead and ask it to create an outline for Scrum ceremonies. Maybe I want to have that be the first thing I create here. Well, it's going to give me an outline based on kind of its understanding of a Scrum ceremony. Maybe this is just my starting point. It's where I can go from to start to understand how I would like to go about Scrum ceremonies. It gives me a way to kind of approach this problem space. And now I've got an outline. I've generated some content and published that. It can be a page that's available for anyone to look at, use for their tooling, and that's there now, which is great. Now, if I want to do a little bit more content here and a little bit more pointed content where I want to actually use AI to let's say provide steps to develop a grassroots marketing campaign. So now I'm getting a bit more pointed to where like I am building a marketing campaign here, right? This is a marketing team for kind of mocking out in these demos. I want to use this to kind of create the steps for that campaign where I want to see how I'm going to go about that, right? So it's giving me some content, gives me a starting place. I can use this to kind of refine what I'm looking at. I can insert this in here, kind of show what's going on and kind of create some content that way. I can also even go in here and if I wanted to, I could highlight everything and ask it to improve the writing, but kind of give me suggestions. It's improving its own writing here, right? So, we probably do this on things that we created, but just showing you that tool exists. There are kind of a lot of things that are available to us as we start to do this and kind of like, go through what we want to see from AI. If I hit ask AI, we'll get kind of like a whole bunch of options where I can just ask it a question directly about the AI. I can summarize the writing. It'll give me a quick summary of it. I can kind of see all the content around that text that I want to see. Now, another thing that I can do is just go to existing content, a little bit like I'm showing there. Let's say I want to kind of do that tone change like I did in the comment earlier, or if I go and kind of edit this mobile first experience page here where we've got let's say this is maybe not a super great way to outline this. Let's say this was not here yet and we have company's been losing customers for the past 3 years. It's not very optimistic, I would say, right? So maybe I want to use the AI to change the tone a little bit. I can go, where's the change tone? Change tone to a little bit more empathetic. Maybe we don't want people at the company reading that we're losing a bunch of customers and we see has been facing challenges in retaining customers and over the past 3 years and kind of use that to go further, even refine it and summarize it or make it shorter, let's say, be more concise and kind of continue to refine based on that. I could insert below to see them side by side. I can just insert it and kind of replace it over the top. I can start to go through all these Confluence pages and do some quick edits and quick updates based on tone or kind of the different content that I want to restructure and create in those pages. Something else that's really cool is if I go into kind of this notes section here, we can also highlight everything. And there's an option that we get in the Atlassian kind of AI tooling. I should see this show up. I mean, it could be in the edit screen. We can actually use AI to find action items out of notes. Let's say I take these notes and they're just kind of like my spewing out content while I'm listening to a call and it's not really the greatest notes. I just want to use them as a starting point and I'm taking notes quickly. But what I want to do is kind of find the action items out of those notes, even though they aren't the best notes. If I hit find action items, what's going to do is take that content and look for the action items that I might be able to find out of that content creates it as a list of action items where I can, insert this below maybe, and now I've got action items that I can check off and complete. So it basically takes what were pretty, inconsistent and not the most detailed notes, and out of that builds a system where I can use that to create some action items, and I can kind of go from there to really easily find what I need to find and kind of understand what's going on. So just a great thing to be aware of. And as you're kind of going around in different pages, you can use these tools to understand the content a bit better. There's actually a button down in the bottom right when you're not in the edit mode, where you can do the same thing. You can summarize the changes since the last time you looked at it, just summarize overall. You can create work items that are based off of this content. So that's a great thing that you can do as well. Basically, anywhere you touch in Atlassian Cloud tooling, once you've enabled Atlassian Intelligence, there's going to be some sort of AI tooling that just shows up there to add some value and help you kind of accelerate the process a little bit. So it's really cool to see that as we're kind of looking through all these tools and kind of understanding how AI is really taking over a lot of the process, but it's really not about doing things that are replacing tasks for us. It's replacing the mundane tasks or kind of like the boilerplate or the kind of tedious things that we might have to do, right? It gets us to a starting point where we can then refine and kind of use the knowledge that we have to get to that final product we're looking for. All right, so I will have another demo to show later on. We're going to talk about Rovo just a little bit, but this is basically all the demos I wanted to walk through for kind of Atlassian Intelligence at the basic standpoint. And I want to jump back to show a little bit of the features kind of in a list form. So this is actually pulled directly from the Atlassian site, this table. So if you want to go kind of look into the Atlassian site and see this table in the most up-to-date and kind of like current structure, then that's something that you can do as well. They've kind of got good lists of all of their available today and coming soon features. So a lot of things, especially coming to like Confluence whiteboards, we've seen some new features show up in whiteboards and kind of all these new features like smart links in kind of all the Atlassian products. So when you link to something, having like a real, preview of that content and having AI be able to be tied into that as well. So it's basically just everything in Atlassian Cloud is getting some sort of AI tooling added into it. Atlassian Intelligence is just a part of the way that we work in these cloud products these days if you're utilizing all the tools that are available. All right, so I also do want to talk a little bit about Jira Service Management specifically. So one of the tools that is available to us is this virtual agent tool in Jira Service Management. So this is one of the ways to create some kind of more AI tooling in your JSM process where it's a little bit less, fully getting into things like Rovo that I'll show in a second. And I'll actually show you examples that you might be able to use in Service Desk as well with Rovo that are like fully AI everything. A virtual agent kind of combines a little bit of that along with just some intent matching and kind of flow direction of conversations you might want to have. So it's basically allowing you to utilize some AI tooling along with you being able to establish the flow of how you want conversations to go. Basically say, if a customer makes a request and we have a pretty high level of confidence that we know what that request is supposed to be doing, we can match the intent very well, then we can utilize this virtual agent to handle that request without needing to use a human agent to deal with that, right? So it's just a good way for us to kind of utilize in service management tasks the AI tooling that's available to us. I'm not going to go super in depth and do a bunch of demos around virtual agents. Feel free to reach out afterwards if you want to talk a little bit more about it. We can do some more demos and kind of show you more about it. But that's just a little bit beyond our content for today. I'm going to just introduce you to it here and tell you that this is a thing that exists. So if you're looking for service management tooling, this is kind of like the first one that you're going to see available. And then Rovo will kind of add a lot of that into it as well, along with just having the same features that you have with Jira and Confluence with Atlassian Intelligence also being available in your JSM projects. All right, so the next thing I have is this kind of beyond work management statement here, right? So what I want to talk a little bit about is how do we take Atlassian Intelligence, how do we take all these AI tools, all the things that are being implemented, how do we go a little bit further than just, generating some content on a ticket or on a page? I want to really see how does this allow me to get AI insights and value across the entire organization? How can I go beyond just the isolated world of Atlassian and really understand connecting everything together and creating value for the entire org and for the entire kind of installation that we have of different products and different tools and different data. So I've got kind of a couple different diagrams I want to show, and this is where I want to just have a diagram to kind of point to what it looks like if you create your own AI tooling and what it looks like if you use Atlassian Intelligence and what's the difference and benefit of kind of one way or the other, right? So this is kind of going to be the equation that we get for how we decide to move forward. We know that basically every organization is being asked to utilize AI at this point. Even if you aren't quite there yet, you're going to be asked to do that at some point. It's just part of the changing nature of the world that we're in, right? So we need AI tooling. And there's always the concern of security. And we talked a little bit about that earlier with respect to Atlassian AI tooling. But there's also the concern for getting as much data into it as possible from our internal knowledge, right? So we want to be able to create tooling that's actually helpful for our internal use cases and not just creating, tools that won't be used very often. So a lot of organizations have gone down this path of let's use our own models, let's build our own, using open source models or our own deal that we can broker with OpenAI or whatever that might look like to create our own fine-tuned models to create our own AI system and build that internally for the value that we're looking for. And that's what this left diagram is outlining. Everything in gray in the middle here, this is what was built by a customer trying to create their own AI system. Blue being everything Atlassian, and then green is everything that this customer had already that were their custom applications, custom tooling, plugins, external data sources, potentially even other SaaS products. So let's say you're also using another tool that's not an Atlassian tool, but it has data that's important, or like financial systems, whatever that might look like, right? So all the data that you want to include in your AI tooling lives in this green section, and in the blue section, you want to take the intersection of that data, want to use that for kind of our AI processing so that we can get the most value out of it as possible. Now, in this example, we have to build our own data store where we can take the data from both of those places, store it in the same central location. We have to then create a custom application probably for managing the prompts and receiving the results. So we have to have some interfaces that we can build around actually interacting with that data to ask it questions and get insights on the data that's there. And we also then need to have the AI prompting and processing. So this is where we're going to either be sending things off to like OpenAI or have our own internal models that are handling this. This becomes very heavy, very cost ineffective, and it's going to have basically just large ramifications for your teams because it might actually potentially be 3 different teams for a large enough organization that has large enough needs. Right now, you have to pay kind of a lot up front and also a lot in the long term for the processing cost of handling all of this and the maintenance cost of changing and updating this over time. So what we get with Atlassian Intelligence is that we don't need that middle section, right? We don't need this gray box. We don't need to build our own tooling. Atlassian's brokered their deal with OpenAI. They have their own internal models as well. All the combination of these things with the teamwork graph and the understanding of all the data that spreads across the organization gives us the AI tooling that we're looking for. But in the process, it also means that where in this example on the left, we didn't have the direct integration where I can just go onto a work item and hit a button and now I have AI tooling available to me. I now can actually get that level of integration with Atlassian Intelligence where I can just have it directly in all of the Atlassian Cloud tools where my work is already being done, where my knowledge base already lives. It can kind of all tie into that same part of the process. The one thing it leaves to be desired is that where is this custom application data, other SaaS products data, external sources of any kind, what is that going to be doing now? Like, how can I actually take that data? How can I get AI insights on the information that lives outside of my Atlassian platform? And that is where Atlassian Forge comes in. So if you've never heard of Atlassian Forge, Forge is the development platform for Atlassian Cloud. This is also going to be where we're going to talk about Rovo a little bit. But essentially, Forge is going to be one of the ways that we can utilize the Atlassian Cloud platform to gain the ability to get insights and AI value on top of all of our data across the entire organization. So Forge allows us to create custom integrations that actually are run on Atlassian servers. So it's, it is custom and it's writing code to solve a problem, but it runs entirely on Atlassian servers with kind of all the Atlassian frameworks and security and user-based access rules built in. So we don't have to worry about managing all of that on our own. So it makes it very easy to approach from a development standpoint. And we can build in connectors and integrations for that external data, where now we can basically augment the information in our Atlassian Cloud platform with our external data sources, and then utilize the AI tooling on top of that to get the insights that we're looking for, to get the value that we're looking for, while still being very deeply integrated with the place that our work is being tracked and happening. Now that leads us into, okay, we can use Forge to do that. We can kind of build some integrations. Obviously, we're not going to go super deep into how that actually works and looks because that's far beyond the content that we can go through here. Of course, you can reach out to us and we have a lot more content we can go through about how to actually build these out, and we can help you do that, help you get to a point where you actually have this diagram in practice. But there is one more piece that's still missing on this diagram, which is Rovo. So if you've been around Atlassian for any amount of time, you've heard the word Rovo probably, kind of like the new hot thing. It is the kind of agentic AI tool that Atlassian is providing. And what it does is it takes that concept of the teamwork graph that I was talking about before. So the ability to kind of crawl through all of the information, understand the connections between all of the data and all of your Atlassian products. It also then includes data from external sources. So your external sources like other SaaS products, other tooling, apps that you've built on your own, your custom applications as well. It adds those into the teamwork graph. So we basically create a single place that has knowledge of all of our information. So just like this, we're going to be kind of like augmenting our data, augmenting that teamwork graph, the understanding of all the tools that we have in our environment to create kind of this single system. And then Rovo sits on top of that to add, full AI capabilities on top of all of that understanding. So if I go to kind of the next set of examples here, I'm going to come back to this example actually here, talk about Rovo first. Rovo in this diagram is basically acting as a connection point along with Forge to allow us to create this value that we're looking for. So we can actually go beyond just having, a button that we can click to get some ideas or generate some content here and there or do some searching. We're actually going to be able to create full-on AI agents. Now, I've done some different webinars and trainings and sessions on Rovo that are going to go more in depth with what Rovo can do. So feel free to go kind of look for those as well. We also did recently a kind of Guinness World Record that we set for the most users in a software lesson, and it was around a Rovo training. So feel free to go find that as well. It's going to actually be something that you can look through and see a little bit of how to utilize Rovo beyond what we can talk about in the course of this hour that we've got. But Rovo here is going to be a major component in how do we get all of the information across the entire organization into a single platform, and how do we build real extensive AI value on top of that. Now, I want to show an example here. This is called Fleet Manager. This is a tool that we built for a major auto manufacturer where they wanted to manage their fleet of kind of rental and test vehicles. So all of the vehicles that their employees or testers were checking out to go test and kind of like log defects against and basically test if they're working correctly. This is our kind of a UFO version of it for demo purposes, but this is actually a Forge application. So we built this in that development framework that I was talking about before called Forge. It's a Forge application that creates, as you can see here, a fully customized, custom-built UI. So to the person actually going and hitting reserve on one of these UFOs and reserving a UFO to test, it doesn't look like Jira per se. We can actually load this up without the top bar, and it won't even look like they're using Atlassian products at all. They're using the custom application that we built for them. But everything behind the scenes here is being stored through JSM and JSM assets. So all of the reservations are requests in the JSM portal. So essentially, we basically created a front end on top of a JSM tool with a lot of logic in that front end as well to kind of handle this process. And we've created a full scale application for this customer where the database and the back end was all just their Atlassian cloud instance. What that does is it first of all removed a lot of the need for them to handle a lot of their own infrastructure, but it also meant that AI can now be used to search and summarize and automate all these interactions. So I can use AI to search with that search bar with the kind of JQL being done with natural language. I can search through all of these reservations with that same tooling and that same setup, just because of the fact that all this data is being stored in the Atlassian platform. So now there's a fully custom application being used by a customer that can be managed by a Jira admin using Atlassian Intelligence to make that their lives a lot easier to kind of comb through that data and understand the process. So this is kind of the embodiment of what we're talking about in some of these diagrams, which is basically taking all of these tools together, combining them into building the solutions for our customers at scale with their data being stored on the Atlassian platform so that we can use the AI tooling on top of that data and really get some value out of it. All right, so this is just a little bit of a diagram on Rovo automations and kind of how we can kind of take Rovo one step further. Rovo is also available in automations directly, so you can actually like in the course of an automation in Jira, Confluence, trigger a Rovo agent. And like I said, if you want to go find some of those videos that we've done on our YouTube channel or other places that you can find on our website, you'll be able to see examples of how I built those things out. I did want to show one example, which is this HR service management example that I've got. So if you have Rovo enabled, Rovo is going to show up as this Rovo chat button. So we have the Atlassian AI button that we've been seeing across the board, which is that little symbol that shows up everywhere in the environment. This is my Rovo chat button up here. I have opened up an agent called HR Assistant V2. Now I built this agent specifically to help create vacation requests. So if I want to basically have a way for our HR team to not get asked every single day, how do I create a vacation request? And they want to just be able to do that kind of through an automated natural language process. I can go in here and say, can you help me create a vacation request? And it's going to be able to help me do that. It'll kind of ask me for some dates here in a second. So it'll say, please provide the start and end date. Let's say November 15th to November 18th. Just pick some dates there that sound good enough, and we'll see what its response is. It should give me a confirmation. So now I can hit confirm. That looks correct. And once that runs, it's actually going to go and create a request in this JSM portal. Now, I don't need to have this project open. I'm just having it open so I can show it to you. I can actually access this HR Assistant V2 from basically anywhere in my Atlassian Cloud products across any of the products. So including Jira and Confluence, anywhere I want to pull it up, I can access Rovo. And then this Rovo chat allows me to utilize it to create a vacation request like I just see here. Here's that new one I just created, this HR 13 request for November 15th to 18th. And even beyond that, there's actually also a Chrome add-on. So this is actually my new tab screen because I've got a Chrome add-on for Rovo. And if I go to even something like, Valiantys.com, let's say I want to go to a website that's not Atlassian. If I go ahead and look over the side, I've showed this little button here where it's actually my Rovo button. So if I hit this Rovo button, it's showing up because I have that browser extension available. I can access that same assistant here as well. So basically taking the AI tooling from Atlassian and overlaying it on everything in the entire broader ecosystem, including just a random website that's not Atlassian at all. And it allows me to ask it those same questions where I can go and create a vacation request here as well. Can you help me create a vacation request? I misspelled it, but it'll should be able to figure that out. And I can do this from basically anywhere. It even tells me now that this is Jira, and it knows I'll be able to do that in Jira. So just showing that you can really take it beyond what we see in kind of like the basic tooling with Atlassian Intelligence, just a starting point, and we can go really deep into Rovo and Forge and kind of how all those things tie together. We're happy to help you as an organization kind of walk down that path and learn the ways to really build a AI-powered workflow, AI-powered organization through all of these Atlassian AI tools. All right, so we do have some upcoming webinars and classes. I've kind of gone through all of the content that I've got for today. So if you want to look through here, this bottom QR code is my LinkedIn, I believe, and my email is there as well. You can go to our website and go to our YouTube channel as well if you search up Valiantys on YouTube and find some past recordings of other webinars that we may have done for other topics, as well as other things like Rovo specific webinars that you can go find if you want to see more information about that. We do have trainings here that are both free and paid, so you can go to the website and see those as well, where you'll be able to go find different offerings that we might have that are some of them free, like this webinar, and some of them paid, where we have like boot camp classes where we can go through multi-day, kind of more in-depth boot camps. We actually do have a Rovo boot camp if you go down that path, and we have a Forge boot camp if you have development teams that are looking to skill up on building custom tooling in Atlassian, kind of for Atlassian Cloud. All right, so we'll go ahead and check if we have any questions. I see a couple in here. So I've got a question that is, Atlassian Intelligence use data sources outside of Atlassian products, for example, SharePoint documents to include knowledge bases. So Atlassian Intelligence on its own isn't necessarily going to be doing that. Rovo absolutely can. So Rovo has a concept of connectors. If I actually go and just look up, Rovo connectors, we should be able to find a list of them. So if you utilize Rovo, kind of use that as your way to connect to other tools, what it does is kind of, as I was describing before, that teamwork graph mindset where we have this interconnected graph of all of the data in our instance, along with these external connections. SharePoint is an option on here, for example, where Rovo, if I go into that Rovo chat or Rovo agents or kind of use the different pieces, can have knowledge of SharePoint documents alongside our knowledge bases that exist in Atlassian products. So it allows us to really tie all the things together, and in order to bring in those external tools, that's where Rovo comes into the equation. And we utilize that to kind of get that functionality. I also see a question about if custom development Forge is the only way to accomplish that. And I'm assuming accomplish that means about this kind of like custom tooling mindset where we've got everything tied together. We utilize Forge to do it. Forge is probably the way that you're going to eventually be doing that in some scenarios, but like I mentioned, Rovo is also a way to accomplish this. So if you use Rovo and Forge together, you may be able to just use Rovo and Atlassian Intelligence, or you might use all three. Kind of using all of them and then in combination with automations as well is really the ultimate combination of all those tools, and gets you the most value. The nice thing is that Forge is very easy to approach. So Forge is something that even if you have limited development experience, kind of doing the basic level of development Forge required to accomplish some of these things that I'm talking about is pretty approachable. And we're certainly here to help and kind of go through that process. If you're looking for some introductions to Forge and have ways to approach that process, we can help kind of go down that path a little bit. The other question is about the licensing for Rovo and kind of where that comes in. This is what I was talking about before, that Rovo and kind of all the AI features in Atlassian Cloud are going to be basically just available across the board. So we're going to be seeing as they roll this out that every instance of Atlassian just has AI tooling as a big part of the way that we utilize it. But we're going to have consumption-based pricing. It's like as you use Rovo, for example, and if you're making a ton of calls that have a lot of data being processed around the AI insights that you're looking for, then you will start to incur some charges. You're going to have, kind of all the graphs and metrics you can find to figure out how much that would be. But basically, that's going to be consumption-based pricing where it's accessible to play around with and test with. It's actually a lot better than we had before. Before we had to actually purchase Rovo as an additional product with a licensing cost. And that licensing cost was just high for everyone. So it was kind of hard to approach. And it also meant that you couldn't really test it and play around with it and just like understand if Rovo was right for you before you paid for it. So now we actually anyone can get access to Rovo to test around with it and play with it and understand how it works and utilize it. And then you only pay for the amount of Rovo that you actually use, which is a nice way to be able to manage that going forward. All right, so that is all of the questions that I see right now, and I believe that's our end here. So thank you for joining us. Hopefully you got something out of this. Like I said, go find our other webinars on the YouTube channel, find our website, all of the materials we have out there, upcoming sessions that we might have. Feel free to join those and kind of get some more content. We hope to see you back with Valiantys for kind of some further things. If you're kind of looking for ways to go down this path, and we can help you on that process. Otherwise, I hope you have a success with Atlassian Intelligence and all the AI tools that Atlassian Cloud is providing. Thank you.